Welcome back to Psychology of Humans. With Socrates, we reach the true beginning of psychology, not as a science, but as a method of examining the mind. Before Socrates, thinkers speculated about nature, reality, and the cosmos. Socrates turned philosophy inward and asked a question that still defines psychology today. How should a human being live? And more importantly, how does a human being know themselves? Socrates lived in Athens in the 5th century BCE. He wrote nothing himself. Everything we know about him comes from others, mainly Plato and Xenophon, but his impact is unmatched. He didn't build a system or a theory. He built a way of thinking. His most famous statement captures his entire philosophy: the unexamined life is not worth living. This was not arrogance, it was a psychological warning. Socrates believed that most human suffering comes from living unconsciously, from accepting beliefs, values, and desires without ever questioning them. The birth of self-examination. Socrates spent his days walking through Athens, asking questions, not to lecture, not to impress, but to expose assumptions. He would ask simple questions. What is justice? What is courage? What is virtue? What is happiness? What does it mean to be good? And as people answered, he would gently probe deeper. Are you sure? What do you mean by that? Does this contradict what you said earlier? This method became known as the Socratic method, a process of disciplined questioning designed to reveal inconsistencies in thinking. Psychologically, this was revolutionary. For the first time in Western history, someone was systematically examining beliefs themselves, not just behavior or tradition. Socrates realized that people often feel confident in what they believe, but that confidence collapses under honest questioning. This is the beginning of metacognition, thinking about thinking. Ignorance as insight. Socrates famously said, "I know that I know nothing." This wasn't false humility, it was a psychological stance. He believed that the greatest obstacle to wisdom is false certainty. When people believe they already know the truth, they stop examining their beliefs. And when examination stops, growth stops. Socrates believed wisdom begins with recognizing the limits of your knowledge. In modern psychology, this appears as intellectual humility, openness to new information, cognitive flexibility, reduced ego defensiveness. People who cannot admit ignorance tend to cling to beliefs emotionally, not rationally. Socrates saw this as a root cause of conflict, injustice, and personal misery. Beliefs shape behavior. One of Socrates' most important psychological insights was this: people act badly out of ignorance, not evil. He believed that if someone truly understood what was good, they would act accordingly. Harmful behavior, in his view, comes from misunderstanding what leads to a good life. This idea influenced centuries of psychology and ethics. Today, we would phrase it differently. People act according to their internal models of the world. If those models are flawed, behavior follows. Cognitive therapy works on this exact principle. Change the belief, and behavior changes. Socrates was the first to articulate that inner beliefs drive outer actions, the inner voice, conscience, and awareness. Socrates spoke of something he called his daemonion, an inner voice that warned him when he was about to act wrongly. He did not describe it as a divine command, but as an inner signal, a kind of moral intuition. Psychologically, this resembles conscience, self-awareness, internal moral regulation, reflective awareness. Socrates believed that living well requires listening to this inner signal rather than external pressures like reputation, power, or wealth. This is one of the earliest recognitions of internal psychological guidance. Virtue and the self. Socrates argued that wealth, status, and pleasure do not create a good life. Only virtue does. But virtue, to him, was not about rules. It was about clarity of mind. A virtuous person understands themselves, understands what matters, and acts in alignment with that understanding. This idea reappears in modern psychology as values-based living, authenticity, integrity, self and concordant goals. Socrates believed that psychological health comes from alignment between belief and action. When people live against their understanding of what is right, they experience inner conflict. We now call this cognitive dissonance. Why Socrates was dangerous. Socrates was eventually put on trial and sentenced to death for corrupting the youth and impiety. Why? Because self-examination is threatening. A society built on unexamined beliefs does not tolerate someone who questions authority, tradition, and assumed truths. Socrates encouraged young people to question their teachers, leaders, and cultural values. Psychologically, he was encouraging independent thinking. Even when given the chance to escape his execution, Socrates refused. He believed that living without integrity was worse than dying. This final act reinforced his central message: a life guided by reflection is worth more than survival without meaning. Socrates in modern psychology. Socrates' influence runs through every major psychological approach. CBT challenges automatic thoughts, Socratic questioning, psychoanalysis explores unconscious assumptions, humanistic therapy focuses on thoughtfulness, existential psychology asks how one should live, mindfulness observes thoughts without attachment. Every time therapy asks, "Why do you believe this?" Socrates is present. He did not give us techniques, he gave us a discipline of inquiry. Applying Socrates today, Socrates offers a powerful psychological tool. Question your beliefs before they question your life. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Where did this belief come from? Is it true? Is it helping me live well? What happens if I let it go? Most people live on borrowed beliefs, inherited from parents, culture, trauma, or fear. Socrates teaches us to reclaim ownership of our mind. Self-examination is uncomfortable, but it is liberating. Final thought. Socrates showed us that the mind is not something to be filled, but something to be examined. Knowledge without reflection leads to arrogance. Belief without examination leads to error. Life without self-awareness leads to quiet despair. The examined mind is not perfect, but it is awake, and an awake mind is the foundation of psychological freedom. Thanks for watching Psychology of Humans.